Hey everybody, welcome back to Peachy Disc Golf. Today, we are going to be butchering some names as I test out some fairway drivers, mid-ranges, I don't know, but I got a couple of Kastaplast 6-speed discs that we're going to try out today. Let's see how they fly. So not too long ago, I did a video review comparing this Berg X to the Berg, and in that video I was like really impressed with the way that the plastic felt. So I ordered a few more Kastaplast discs here. Today I'm going to be testing out this collection of 6-speed discs, which are quite interesting because Kastaplast has these listed as mid-ranges. So like you can see on the disc here, they're all listed as mid-range drivers. All of these are 6-speed discs. So I have 3 names. I'm gonna butcher them, I'm sure. We have the Kaxe, which is a 6403. I have the Kaxe Z, a slightly less overstable version, 6502. And then we have the newest disc, the Stig, 65-21. So a little more on the understable side. In the hand, they feel more like drivers. So the wings of all of these discs are a little bit wider than like your standard mid-range would be. They feel more like drivers, but they are all definitely on the deeper end. I'm gonna put a couple of pictures comparing these discs. I'll show one here with just a mid-range, probably the Hex or something here, and you can see most mid-ranges have this more rounded rim where all of the wings for these 6-speed Kastaplast discs, they come more to a point like you would expect with a driver. But then when comparing them to drivers, like I have the Crave here, the drivers are definitely a good deal shallower. So it's really interesting. Me personally, I treat 6-speeds as fairway drivers, like the Leopard from Innova, the Relay from MVP. I consider these to be fairway drivers, but these discs truly seem like they might be sort of a little hybrid between a mid-range and a fairway driver. Really interesting how these companies are sort of blurring the lines between what's a mid-range, what's a driver. But we're just gonna play a handful of holes here at Chattahoochee Pointe Park. I just wanted to play with these discs because they felt amazing, they sound amazing. Let's go see if they are amazing. We're gonna kick things off here at hole 2, 360 feet par 4. Basket is straight down on the little mound in the middle. One of the few holes that hasn't changed its pin position. We're gonna test out all 3 of these mid-range drivers on this hole. We're not gonna do that for every single hole, but because this one's so open, why not test all 3? So we're gonna go from the most overstable to the least. So we're gonna start with the Kaxe, then we'll do the Kaxe Z, and then the Stig. So Kaxe, I'm gonna go to the right of this tree right in front of me, let it fade back, and hopefully have a nice approach there to the basket. Yeah, that looks good. Little nose up there. Kaxe Z, the Kaxe already didn't have a super big dump to the left. Interested to see what the Kaxe Z does. I imagine then that this might just go nice and straight. We'll see. Oh yeah. That was another really good throw. These are really interesting. They definitely don't feel like they have the fade of a driver for me, where they, even my Crave has a nice pushing forward fade to the left. They do fade to the left, but they have sort of more of a drop. More similar to a mid-range, which is really interesting. So now we're going with the Stig, the most understable. This one I'm actually gonna hang out to the left, let it turn. I don't want to throw it out to the right and lose it in the tall grass. Oh, that's a beauty. That's not coming back. Okay, I'm in the tall grass, but that had a nice little turn. I might have had a little bit of anhyzer on that release. It did not want to fight out. Maybe if I gave it a little more height, it would have, but honestly, that was a really nice understable disc. It didn't want to completely burn over really quickly or turn into a roller. It just had a nice arcing, sweeping pan to the right. Okay, so all of these got excellent distance. I'm actually pretty impressed. So we have the first throw, the Kaxe. Is the shortest of the group, but still a very easy chip to the basket, maybe 100 feet, maybe less even, probably 100 feet. The Kaxe Z, even further, we're probably 10, 15 feet further. Really easy. I could almost jump putt approach that. And then the Stig, even better. I thought this was in the tall grass, but this is still right in the fairway. definitely like a jump putt. So I didn't really notice this too much on the tee, but out here where the disc landed, there is sort of like bursts of a headwind. So maybe that's why everything was a little bit more understable. So really interested to see how they behave when we go the opposite direction into a tailwind. I didn't bring a putter, but I did bring the Berg X. So we'll be approaching with this and putting with this. Woo. I thought that was gonna drop in for a second. The Berg really fought through that headwind actually. That might be a good reason for bagging the Berg X over the Berg, is into a headwind like this. Birdie to start. Okay, hole 3 is in its longest position, 280 feet, par 3. The basket is through the wide gap here, a little bit off to the left under the big tree, just in the shade there. We're gonna be trying out the Kaxe and the Kaxe Z here, just to see how they compare. The wind is a little more of a tailwind. It is swirling around a little bit here and there. We'll see, just again, how these compare stability-wise, how much less overstable is the Kaxe Z. Kaxe Z first. Oh, a little turn. Might have put that on Anheuser, I guess. Okay, pretty good distance. Almost got to the tree line there. That actually would be parked in the old pin position. Let's try the Kaxe. This should have a little bit more fight to it. Oh, I love that disc. Oh, that I think is parked. Maybe not, maybe just a hair short, but that was a great throw. And honestly, you know, it's interesting. Both of these discs I don't feel are quite as overstable as their numbers suggest. Like the Kaxe there has similar numbers to my resistor. Now I didn't bring the resistor, unfortunately, but the resistor I feel like has a lot more fade at the end. And the Kaxe Z, I'll have to look. Maybe I released it on Anheuser, but I thought I threw it pretty flat. It had a little bit of turn. There is a headwind right now, so maybe there was a little bit of wind messing with that. I also brought my Axiom Hex and my Axiom Crave as well. So we're gonna test both of these on this hole as well, just to see, are these discs closer in distance to fairway drivers or mid-ranges? I expect them to be closer to drivers, but let's see. We'll start with the Hex. Okay, I cut that a little further left than I wanted, but definitely a circle 2 from there. Let's get the Crave up a little further. Oh, I think I did. Oh, fade. Yeah. Oh, that's pin high, a little right. I had a nice little hyzer flip out of that. Whew, love the Crave. All right, so these results are pretty interesting, sort of what I expected. The Hex here was definitely the furthest away from the pin distance-wise, but we did actually get almost up to like the edge of the circle here. So this probably went 250 for me. Pretty good throw on for a mid-range. The Kaxe, my best throw, I feel like, right here. Easy tapping. Distance-wise, almost pin high, just like 5 feet short of the pin. The Kaxe Z here, almost tripped and died. The Kaxe Z, very similar distance to the Kaxe. You can see we're about the same distance, but they have that little bit of turn. And then where's the Crave? The Crave went into these bushes almost. So I thought it was like right here. Ah, here it is, past the basket. So the Crave went the furthest, which doesn't surprise me. The Crave's a little beat in, but really interesting. That means these Kastaplast discs for me sort of do fit that sort of hybrid, like it's between my mid-range and my like 6.5 speed fairway driver. Would you count that as a 7 speed, I guess, maybe? Is that why it's a little further? I don't know. The Crave though, this disc is money. Two for two. Hole 4 is going to be an interesting one. It is a par 5, 730 feet. First shot, strong headwind right now. Got to make it through these 2 initial gaps here. I'm going to be going with the Kaxe for that. And my goal is to use all 3 of these 6 speeds on this hole. So I'll have to sort of strategically decide what to do for shots 2 and 3. But we're going to start with the Kaxe because I really don't want this wind to turn my disc over into that tree on the right there. Yeah, that's perfect. Right in the center. Money. This wind is just ridiculous, so I don't know if we're going to be able to use the Stig on this hole, but I am going to use the Kaxe Z here. We'll see. Don't want it to burn out to the right though. Oh, look at that flip. That was beautiful. All right, pretty good. Definitely a lot lower than I wanted to, but it had a nice flip up in this headwind. Didn't burn over, it just got to flat, carried straight. Let's see how close we are. We have a long way to go to get to the basket. I could probably make it there with these Kastaplast discs on a good throw. I'm gonna go with a Stig. We're gonna commit to using each one once. There's a bit of a headwind though, so I'm actually gonna throw it to the left of the basket on some hyzer, try to give it some height, not into the ground, and let it flip up and turn over just a bit. We'll see though. How much is this gonna turn in this headwind? Oh no, I didn't throw it to the left at all. Dang, that would have been a good throw if I would have gotten to the left. Ugh. Man, the Stig had the distance. I just didn't have the aim. I will say the flight though was great. It didn't burn over or just like flip over into oblivion. It had a nice arcing pan again, even in this headwind. It does seem really nice and controllable for an understable sort of 6-speed disc. So that could be a disc that makes my bag. But here we go. Little Berg throw-in attempt for birdie. Nope. Parked for par. Hole 7 hasn't moved, 255 feet, par 3. Had to make it through this initial gap. Basket a little bit off to the left. There's a pretty stiff headwind right now, which means we're going with the Kaxe. This is the only disc that I have even a little bit of trust in. So I do imagine that this is still gonna have a little bit of turn to the right in this headwind. Hopefully though, it still has a nice fade to the left at the end of the flight. That looks good. A little short, circle's edge, I think. Kaxe Z here. This one we'll have to put some hyzer on. Yeah, I put a good bit of hyzer on it, though that did hold up pretty nice. Actually, that might be pin high. Let's try the Stig. Even on hyzer, I imagine this one will go way to the right. Yep, that's gone. Let's try the Crave as well. That's money. Go in. Oh, just a hair short. Ooh, that was so good. All right, well, I definitely thought that these, the Kaxe and the Kaxe Z were closer to the basket, but we're like circle's edge from the Kaxe, at least. Kaxe Z just a little bit closer, whereas the Crave parked. Yeah, the Crave made it right here, so easy tapping right here. These are a true like 6-speed disc. Like it is right in between my 5-speed mid-ranges and my 6.5, 7-speed fairway drivers. So that's really, really interesting. Oh, way low. Jeez, what was that? All right, we're gonna have some fun on this hole. Hole 12, 385 feet, par 4. The basket got moved. It's on the right side of the grove at the end of the fairway, but we have options. My normal play is to go down this bigger, wider right gap with something overstable. We're gonna do that with the Kaxe. But then I'm gonna take the Kaxe Z as well, take Kang's line, go straight through the trees. There's more air than trees. And then I'm gonna try Sandra's line that she showed me in the FCA tournament. I'll have some coverage of that tournament coming out soon, so be sure to subscribe to check that out. Where we go down the left side with a big sweeping turnover. We're gonna try that with the Stig. But first, with the Kaxe. Ooh, cut that close. It's making it through. That's actually in a perfect spot. That was really close to those trees on the left. Kaxe Z. I'm aiming for not the right gap, not the gap to the left of it, but the one to the left of that. So if I make this, you have to subscribe. Let's go. You got to do it now. That was a good shot. All right, check this out. So Sandra, in a tournament that we just did recently, went this way. And she was parked. She birdied this hole, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we're just going to the left of that tree with the Stig. Give it some height. Oh, it got tangled. Oh, it fought through. Oh man, that's a tricky one. So here's the thing though, with the Stig, every time I've thrown it, it's never burned over. Like it's definitely not gonna fight back for me very easily, especially with my like tendency to put stuff on anhyzer on accident. But It's a nice arcing turn. I really like it. This one is, there's a strong chance it competes for a slot in my bag. Okay, so the Stig did get tangled up, got batted down into the rough. You can see the basket up ahead. When the basket was off to the left here, that was such a good play. Sandra, I think, landed like right here in this fairway. Really easy straight approach from there. But we're gonna go from the Kaxe to the Kaxe Z. Both of those were better shots. So Kaxe Z, middle of the fairway here. The Kaxe, like 20 feet further, and the basket up here. So we'll go from the Kaxe first throw and see how close we can get with the berg. Oh, hit the pole. Let's go. All right, I'm getting tired. We're gonna wrap up here at hole 13, which is a par 3. I think the sign on this hole is switched. It says this pin position on the left is 270 feet, whereas the pin position that seems further to the right is 250. I think they're switched because this feels like 250 to me. We're gonna throw all 3 here. This will actually be a good test for me for the Stig in particular, because one thing I want to know is I don't need to throw this full power. How controllable is it? Like, so if I throw a little bit softer, is it still gonna have a little turn? Is it gonna have a little more fade? Really interested to see how it behaves. We'll go in order of stability. So we'll go Kaxe first, Kaxe Z second, Stig last. Swing. That's parked. Nice. All right, Kaxe Z next here. Too short. Too soft. Dang. All right, let's see with the Stig. Really interested to see how this goes. I'm gonna sort of go right at it, little hyzer. Little flip, little fade, still short. Kaxe Z and Stig, sad shots, really soft. Kaxe though, pretty solid. Nice circle one look. Let's go. Nice birdie to end the day. Well, I am finished up with this little initial test of these Kastaplast discs. I don't want to say like this is my final thoughts right now, because I do want to actually do another video where I do like a full 18 round loop using only Kastaplast discs, where I actually have a couple others in my collection. I have like the Lotes, the Yarn. So I want to try to sort of get a wide assortment, and I'll still be throwing these in the mix as well. Let me just give you my initial impressions of these 3 6-speed discs, because as of right now, I'm quite impressed, and I'm torn what I want to do with them. The Kaxe was probably my favorite of the group. It's very dependable. It's not like crazy overstable. If I see 6403, I expect this to be like a mini baby Firebird, and it definitely doesn't feel quite like that, but it is trustworthy in the wind. I threw it into a pretty stiff headwind, and it didn't really have any problem fading back to the left. So it's definitely something I can trust in the wind, whereas these other two are definitely a little bit more on the squirrely side, but I'm getting some pretty solid distance out of this. It's not going as far as my Crave, which means it's probably not gonna go as far as my normal fairway drivers, but it does go a little bit further than my normal mid-ranges, like my Hex, for example. So for the Kaxe here, it's overstable. Do I wanna bag this instead of my Matrix that I'm using right now in my overstable mid-range slot? That I really don't know, because I'm getting a little bit more distance with the Kaxe, but would I rather throw a resistor or a servo and get a little more distance for a fairway and keep the Matrix for something a little more slow? I'm really torn about what to do with all of these, because they are all sort of the same thing. The Kaxe Z here goes a little bit further than my mid-ranges. Like my Hex, for example, is probably the closest comparison for this one. This one just goes nice and straight, a little bit of turn, a little bit of fade. Very similar to the Hex, but I can get a little bit more distance with this. But compared to my Crave, I was always getting a little bit further with that even. So this isn't replacing my fairway drivers, but would it replace my mid-ranges? I really don't know, especially like with the Kaxe Z, for example. Like the only disc I could think of in my bag right now that this would replace is like my Hex, for example. And I love the Hex. And I don't foresee debagging the Hex, because the thing is with the Hex, I know I could throw it full power and it's only gonna go so far. So it's if I have like a 250 foot and in shot, I can reach for that. Whereas if I throw this full power, I might go past the basket. So that's sort of the concern of why I'm a little wishy-washy on these. The one that I'm most considering bagging though is the Stig, and that's because I don't really have like that understable slot fully set in stone right now. My slowest understable disc is my PA5 in 300 plastic. It's an understable putter, and that disc is gonna stay. The Peach is my middle of the road understable disc. It's a 4-speed understable mid-range, and then I have the F7, which is my faster understable disc. I also have an F9. That's more if I need to throw rollers or if I'm throwing like a standstill and still want to get a little distance. That's more utility. That one probably won't leave the bag right now. But the Stig, I was getting really nice sweeping turnover releases, really easy to hyzer flip. Even on like lower power, I was still able to get a nice little hyzer flip. It had a little bit of fade at the end as well. So you can definitely get different shot shapes out of this disc. This disc is probably the most likely to end up in my bag if any of them do, because I could foresee replacing the Peach, for example, with this disc just to have a little more even spacing. So I have like a putter 3-speed, I have a 6-speed and an 8-speed in my understable discs rather than a 3, 4, 8. But honestly, I don't think it matters that much. I feel like a little obligated because we're Peachy Disc Golf to keep a Peach in my bag. So, you know, what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know. I really love all of these discs though. I am considering right now like doing a series this off season where I sort of finalize my bag for next season. I do want to sort of do a, like what's in my bag right now. I recently changed bags. I have the Squatch Lore bag, a little bit smaller than what I was using before. So I have a couple of like in the bag videos planned. So maybe we'll do a little series where I sort of solidify what I'm going to put in the bag. But I don't know. The problem is these discs are great. I love throwing them. The plastic feels amazing. I want to bag these. I don't have space in my bag for them right now, and I'll have to remove other discs that I love instead. So really, really tricky. I don't know, guys. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Let me know down in the comments, what would you do? What discs of this grouping do you like the best? But that is gonna be it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to the channel. If you enjoyed watching this little initial review video of these Kastaplast discs, be sure to give this one a thumbs up and ring that notification bell so you can be notified when our next episode comes out. Until next time, guys, cheers.